I think this is why the Democrats always lose, because they make up these imaginary formalities and rules that they want to follow, and then the Republicans go and make up whatever the hell they want. Like Mitch
That's true.
McConnell
Yes,
4 years
so
ago, making up this like silly Biden rule just to get what he wanted, and now he's gonna be a hypocrite and not do it.
and you're listening to the Brown Perspective. This is your host, Eduardo. I'm here with the one and only, el inigualable RO.
Buenos días, ¿cómo estamos?
Buenos días, buenos días. Hoy es una mañana triste. Ayer se sintió un temblor. We had an earthquake, not only here in the LA area, but in DC and nationally, politically. Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg passed away last night. Que descanse en paz. May she rest in peace. The notorious RBG. And I think we all know this is devastating on a number of fronts. One, for when you think about women's rights, she was the second woman to join the Supreme Court. But before that, she was a civil rights lawyer who really fought to give women equal treatment under the law. So I don't know how many of you, and Herrero, I'm not sure if you saw the movie On the Basis of Sex that sort of chronicles her life.
No, I haven't seen it actually, but I will
Yeah,
be.
so it's a movie. Obviously, it's Hollywood. It's going to be a little dramatized, but very remarkable woman who did some remarkable work, both as a citizen, a private citizen, and then more importantly as a Supreme Court justice. And then obviously we are about 45 days away from an election. And last time around, Mr. Mitch McConnell said that Obama couldn't confirm and that the Senate would not confirm his nominee because we were a few months away from an election. And, 4 years later, here we are. Now there's a vacancy, and it appears that Mr. McConnell is going to go ahead and get it done 45 days within. So that's part of the
Yeah.
political controversy that we'll have over the coming weeks.
Yeah, and before we get into that, I also want to make sure I pay my respects to Ruth Bader
Oh,
Ginsburg
claro, claro.
and the incredible impact that she had. And when I was reading more about her and I started understanding more the specific strategy that she adopted early on in terms of how she was going to tackle the sexism, the approach that she chose, she ended up receiving a lot of blowback at some point because she was taking a lot of cases that represented
Men.
sexism against men. Correct.
Hmm.
While some may have interpreted that in some negative way that maybe that she should be representing women, what she was doing was she was exposing to the country, she was bringing to the surface the inconsistencies that women were given specific roles as well as men. So by
Hmm.
representing men in these cases, for example, the one in, I think it was a father in New Jersey
Hmm.
who lost his wife, but he didn't qualify for certain benefits because he was a single
Hmm.
parent, and those benefits were only given to single women,
Hmm.
to single mothers, sorry, not to single fathers. She was representing a man, but the underlying structure that she was chipping away at was that women have been assigned specific roles, and as a result of assigning those roles, we have also given them certain protections, and that's
Hmm.
not right. Um, so I really I appreciate that strategy that she used early on, and also obviously her dissents, even when the Supreme Court ruling went in one direction, the fact that she put so much effort into the dissents, and she felt like those dissents could also be useful to us in the future. And then, obviously you have other people here on Twitter that are paying their respects to her.
Her strategy, I mean, brilliant legal mind, but she did a little bit of legal jujitsu, using a man in order to change the law to favor women at that time. And obviously, those are some of the same laws that also have provided a lot of rights to LGBTQ communities and folks
Yep.
on the basis of her work. So you can see how her work has expanded opportunity. But to your point, I think that's one of the reasons the Supreme Court and the area of legal studies is so interesting, because basically their legal arguments are based on solving issues and convincing pretty smart people, and also the society as a whole to make a change and to do things differently. So it takes I mean, some brilliant mind in order to do that so effectively as she did.
All right. So let's just read some tweets, and then you can tell me what you think now as a result of this. This is Hillary Clinton. Justice Ginsburg paved the way for so many women, including me. There will never be another like her. Thank you. So these are paying their respects, which is good. This is definitely what should be happening, instead of what the parallel discussion that's already happening, which is Mitch MCConnell, which you mentioned this earlier. Can you give me your thoughts on this?
Such a hypocrite, right? So I think part of this is happening because it exposes what Senate Majority Leader Mitch MCConnell did, which was basically steal Obama a Supreme Court nomination. So in some ways, this is like the world, or the world seeing that he did this to Obama in part because he felt that he could do it and he was in a position to do it, in part because I would say because he was black and he felt he could get rid of it, and there was really no consequences to him, right? So people didn't fight for Obama because they did not anticipate being in this position, or they did anticipate being in this position, and now Mitch McConnell
you can call him
proves
McDonald
the fact
because he's a clown.
McDonald had a farm. But now so now we're even closer to the election, and he's going to proceed with this nomination. So basically, being very hypocritical. So I think it's just there for the world to see what his true intentions were. So I know that there's a lot of anger, a lot of worried because of what that means, and the Supreme Court does make some important decisions, and there's important decisions on the table right now.
Yeah, there's frustration in me, but it's going to surprise you as to where my frustration is coming from.
Okay.
My frustration is coming from the fact that people are shocked that Mitch MCConnell would do something that's politically advantageous to him and to his party. When I go on Twitter and I see everyone calling him a hypocrite and saying that 4 years ago he did this, he did that, I'm saying, like, why would you think otherwise? Like,
because politics is almost like a religion, right? It's supposed to be about honor. It's supposed to be
no,
about,
it's not. That's the problem. It's not about any of that stuff, man. Politics.
I know. So I feel we were freaking duped.
Politics is about these politicians doing what's best for them and for those that they represent, and they don't represent the people.
It's true, but this messes up. Like, there's a certain decorum and a certain that was a fundamental changing of the rules, right? So
this is like getting mad at somebody for going into a court case, putting their hand over the Bible and swearing that they're going to tell the truth and then lying about it. I mean, yeah, you have decorum. We have these formalities that we're supposed to follow, but people, when it suits their interest, they do whatever it is that is going to be beneficial for them. And it's no different with Mitch MCConnell. So I'm just appalled that so many people would actually be shocked that he would try to rush through or rush a vote on somebody that Trump nominates.
Nosotros los románticos. Those who think that there's still romanticism in politics and honor.
They don't follow the rule. I mean, they expect you to follow the rules. They expect people to follow the rules. If you don't do that, you'll get in trouble. You go to jail for smoking pot or for doing something inconsequential. But they don't follow the rules. They don't, and he's gonna do it. And there's nothing that the Democrats can do Let's talk about the different scenarios, right? So let's talk about them because I also have my thoughts on what the sellout Democrats are going to end up doing with this. Because
Hey,
I don't.
hey, hey. Let's not. It's not just the sellout Democrats. There's remember there's Republicans. There's you know at least 51 other Republican senators who could do something if they have the morals and the guts to do it
They're not going to do it
and the
though.
courage to do
That's
it.
what I'm telling you.
Oh,
I would be shocked, completely shocked, if you managed to find 4 Republicans, because you can't do 3. Because if 3 abstain from a vote, then you have Pence, Mike Pence,
well,
that could be the
the
tiebreaker.
tiebreaker. Yeah, but I think I read yesterday that Senator McCursky from Alaska had indicated
Yeah.
that she was not going to vote for it, and I admire her
You know
if
how
she
many
did that.
times politicians flip flop when they're presented with.
They do, but this is like this is important, dude. I mean, they know this is a decision that they have to live with, and that our nation has to live with for decades.
I don't think
So
that
this
matters to
is
them.
like, huh?
I don't think that matters to them,
It should. I mean,
but
it
it
should matter
doesn't.
somewhat. Come on, dude.
I
Because
know.
because if you're changing the game that like you're basically as you do that, you're taking down the game, you're making it unfair, and then things are gonna get out of control,
But see, this is
right? Like once you start the check and balances, once you start, you're gonna get in back into monopolies. You're gonna get into like parties controlling who wins, who doesn't, and I think that's not where we want to go back to.
yeah, but look, it's not that hard for me to see that the Republicans are just going to do what's in their interest. And even if there's 4 Republican senators that are right now saying that they're not going to vote, that they want to wait until there's a new president, there's going to be some, what is it called, horse trading. They're going to.
Democrats, yeah, who are like, hey, we're in a tough re-election. We need to.
Well, the Republicans are just going to go to these other 4 Republicans that are abstaining, and they're going to offer them something that will make it attractive for them to vote.
Yeah,
They'll promise them, I don't know, whatever it is that you can promise a senator, full funding
money,
for their next reelection
projects,
campaign or full
assignments.
support.
Yep.
I mean, blackmail, whatever it takes, right? If there's a determined group of people that want to do something, they'll do it. And these Republicans that are saying that they're not going to vote, they'll flip flop, and then they'll end up voting for it. And what I was going to tell you is that I wouldn't be surprised if that happens, because I think you hold our government to a standard that is not attainable. Because think about it this way: if these people were willing to lie to the nation to go to war, because
Hmm.
Iraq was not a blunder. Iraq wasn't a mistake. They knew what they were doing. They wanted to go into Iraq to destabilize it. If they're capable of doing that, they're going to send thousands of soldiers to their death. 500,000 to 1,000,000 Iraqis dead. So we already know they don't care about human life. We already know that they don't care about lying to the American people. Why would they care about their reputation and their so-called honor by waiting for the next president to until they vote for a Supreme Court justice? They don't care, man. They're just gonna do
No,
whatever's in their interest.
that's true. No, and I think, but that's the problem. It's like 50-50. Like there's about half people who don't care and then 5 people who do care. And at what point are the people that do care going to step up and say, this is wrong? So, and it's just a few, right? So even if it's 51 point, because it is a majority to an extent, and I think some people may argue that not really because of the electoral college, things are kind of messed up for a reason, and it's a reason because
But
that was
what?
put in there to protect against the rule of the mob that was happening in the states and that they didn't want to perpetuate, that they wanted to control. But like there needs to be, so there's a significant number of people who don't agree, who have other ideas, who are still there, who are fighting, and it's basically the undecided who we're fighting for
But
on a lot of these issues.
what's the moral challenge here? Meaning, what is it that would keep these senators from voting? Is it just that Mitch McConnell 4 years ago said that we shouldn't vote for a Supreme Court justice if it's an election year, Are you saying that, and then going back on his word and the hypocrisy of that, and also not respecting RGB's decision or her last words to say that she wants her replacement to be named after the election? So those two things, right? Those are the two things that would give these senators moral qualms, that they wouldn't be able to sleep at night if they go along with this. Is that the only thing that, because legally there's nothing in the law that says that you can't do this. So this is all about morality and ethics.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and I guess in some ways, Mitch McConnell invented a rule when that.
Well, he called it the Biden rule, and Biden is the first one that mentioned something like that. I think back in '92, where he said that we shouldn't hold a vote for a new Supreme Court justice until a new administration comes in. They call it the Biden rule. Mitch McConnell is the one that said that this is a thing, that this is a formality that we must follow. But that's all it is. It's a formality, and they're gonna break that, and it's just a moral thing. There's nothing in the law that says that there's nothing illegal about what they're doing. So I don't see how they would. I don't even, these four Republicans that would in theory vote against it. I don't even see why they would vote against it unless the Democrats are able to bribe them and give them something to make it worth their while not to vote for it. Because they hate Trump. Their ideology is still Republican. But it would benefit them to have another Supreme Court justice that's conservative. So then, I don't see how you get four dissenting senators that are not going to vote on this.
No, yeah, it would be very hard. But you also understand that it's almost like that the fue penal, no? Anybody, all the Mexicans out there who are still thinking about el penal, that was not given. I feel like this is what it is, right? So
I don't feel like that.
You don't feel like it?
No, I feel like what's his name? He used to play for Barcelona, the defender, Marquez, Rafa Marquez. I feel like Rafa Marquez is an idiot for not knowing that this guy was gonna flop in the penalty box.
That's true.
That's how I feel. I mean, the refs call no fue penal, but refs call bad penalties all the time, man. I'm not going to dwell on that. It's the idiot that went in hard knowing full well that this guy was a flopper. So anyway.
That could happen. Yeah, that you expose yourself. Yeah, that's true.
Anyway, so it's going to be difficult in this situation. Have you heard about the chatter that's been going on about those that have already come to terms with the fact that a new justice is going to be appointed even before the election or after the election during the lame duck session? They're already thinking ahead as to, okay, what can the Democrats do about this 6-3 imbalance in the Supreme Court, six conservatives, 3 liberals. And they're already talking about, if Biden comes in and he has control of the Senate, get rid of the filibuster and expand the number of justices in the court to 15. They're already talking about that.
Yeah, I mean, so you could do that, but I feel then will be not as good. Will be just as good as the Republicans, right? And I think that yes, it gives you the advantage. Yes, your team is going to get a win, and maybe you'll be able to get even, right? Like be able to appoint people to the lower courts that eventually are going to rise up and be potential candidates, but more importantly, they'll help move forward your ideology. But then 4 years from there, the other administration is going to come in, is going to do away, is going to then you a new rule. So you see how you start changing the rules, and the game becomes more unfair.
But see, then
you get to a point where there's not going to be an agreement, and there's going to be a civil war.
Well, there's not going to be a civil war, at least not because of that. There might be a civil war for other reasons, but not because of that.
Well, a combination of things, though. But but that's the thing. Like, if you think about the system, these are a lot, and oftentimes they do want smaller government, and they have a legitimate concern for why they want small government. All those things. But what ends up happening is like disparities get worse, inequality gets worse, climate is going to get worse. There's going to be civil unrest. There's going to be a lot of stuff going internationally too, and all those things are destabilizing.
Don't we? I feel like we already have a lot of those things. You're saying it's
Yeah,
well, look, but
but that's going to be happening in the U.S. I mean, it happened to the U.S. It hasn't been this, and maybe I do have a romanticized memory of what I think about it, but I do think that will be a very different, very scary type of time for the country.
I think this is why the Democrats always lose, because they make up these imaginary formalities and rules that they want to follow, and then the Republicans go and make up whatever the hell they want, like Mitch
That's true.
McConnell
Yes,
4 years
so
ago, making up this like silly Biden rule just to get what he wanted, and now he's gonna be a hypocrite and not do it. And why are the Democrats still pretending like these things
yeah,
matter? It's like like in the movie Batman, where the Joker exposes Batman as being severely limited because Batman is unwilling to go outside of his ethics to apprehend and bring down these criminals. Yet the Joker is willing to do whatever it takes to get his way. And in a way, I'm not saying that the Democrats are Batman here and that they're super ethical, but I'm saying that the Republicans just don't care, man. They don't put these restrictions on themselves to operate at whatever cost mentality to get what they want. And look at they certainly have gotten the upper hand in this situation now. First, now this is going to be the third Supreme Court justice that Trump is going to put forth, and they're going to vote on. And I know a lot of people are probably gonna blame the people that didn't vote for Hillary, or those that voted for Trump as a protest vote. But look, that's like blaming. You understand that the Democrats are essentially holding their party hostage. They're holding the entire electorate hostage because they're saying you have nothing else better. No one else is offering you anything better. You have no choice but to vote for us, and we're not going to give you anything meaningful. We're not going to talk about changing healthcare. We're not going to talk about ending foreign wars. We're not going to talk about like the poor people in this country. You guys have nothing, so you guys have to vote for us. So it was the Democratic establishment that held its base hostage, and now they're trying to blame the hostages for the outcome. And like, no. If we're in this situation, a lot of the blame should go to the Democratic Party because of the way that they've run, the way that they've operated for the last 8 to 12 years. And so, anyway.
No, yeah, you have some fair points, and unfortunately, a lot of those people who drove those types of decisions are no longer in the party, and probably now understand how that was not helpful.
Well, they could have corrected course this time around, and they could have picked a progressive that is more likely to actually win Trump voters by promising them something like healthcare, by promising them things that actually make a meaningful difference in their lives. But they didn't do that. They doubled down on Biden, saying that, well, we'll give you guys Biden, and you guys are going to have to vote for Biden because what are you going to vote for Trump? Yeah, he's worse than us. I think that strategy completely backfired on the Republicans, and I'm sorry, on the Democrats.
Democrats.
And you know what I think it's going to happen now? This is just me like speculating, but considering that the Democrats don't really give a shit about their base, they don't really seem to care about helping the working class people anymore. I wouldn't be surprised if they make a calculated decision that because at this point the Democrats are thinking, how do we use this situation to our advantage to win the White House, to win the Senate, and be in full control again. I don't think they're thinking about, let's stop this Supreme Court justice because
well, they need to make a symbolic effort to try to slow this down.
Yeah, but
but you're right. They probably know this is a losing battle, but we still need to give it our best, delay and fight because that's what we need to show. But then the reality is this going to happen, and then we have to work on X, Y, Z.
And I think though, if they had a choice to try to stop this nomination, but then that would mean that they could get some support for Biden to win, or let this nomination go through, scare the hell out of the liberal base, which is already happening. Like all the liberals are freaking out about this because, what is it going to mean to have a 6-3 court? Okay, let that happen. scare the hell out of the Democratic base and all these liberals, all these like Bernie supporters, and the ones that would have in the past voted for Trump as a protest vote, really scare them into backing the Democrats. So not only do you get Biden into the White House, and then you get the Senate as well. They must be considering this as a political calculation as well, because again, they just care about winning. I mean, they've shown that they don't really care about the needs of the people, because they're not even willing to offer have discussions on how to reform healthcare to really help people. So if they don't care about the people, why would they care about there being a whole bunch of conservative justices? I mean, is it because Democrats really do care about all the things that are going to be rolled back, like Obamacare, a woman's right to abortion, and all of the other, like maybe social safety, the safety net programs that are going to be rolled back by Republicans? Do they really care about that stuff? Do you think the Democrats care? I mean, if they cared about that stuff, they would.
A certain percentage of them do, yes, because they've been part of what it means to be a Democrat. Is a big differentiator between who's a Republican and who's a Democrat.
But do they really care about those things though? Because they're not offering anything in terms of a different type of healthcare system to their base. Biden is not offering that. Are the Democrats offering that? So if
what?
Offering any type of meaningful change, alterations to healthcare that would benefit people. They're not. I still don't know what Biden is actually offering people in terms of something that's actually going to make a meaningful change in people's lives. So if they don't care about those things, why would they care about the Republicans having the Supreme Court? I mean, they care about it in the sense that politically, they may not be able to pass their own agenda, but that doesn't mean that the agenda that the Democrats want to put forth is an agenda that benefits people. So
it benefits people, but obviously it's not the purest element of that. I mean, and that's the other thing. There's also some who are political realists and understand that in a very divided government, we're not going to be able to pass this. So there needs to be some compromise. There needs to be maybe a longer term strategy to get to, well, first of all, like fixing and correcting a lot of the things that have been undone by 45, but then to the extent possible, strengthening those programs. And if you can do something that's great, like passing climate change legislation or something, like to your point, maybe doing some more meaningful work to get towards Medicare for all, but you need to get in there, right? So you need to win. And I know that we had this discussion previously. So they made the political calculation, and probably also to an extent, like this is the more moderate part of the party. We need to try to get them to vote to come out, and maybe even try to convince a few Republicans to come our way, and maybe that's how we win. But obviously, to your point, they could have gone to the other strategy, like they just focus on our base. This is a game of bases. Let's get our base as excited as we can, and maybe we'll get some of them who would support for the type of ideas that Bernie Sanders does. So we'll get them from the other side of the political spectrum. So I guess it's a mentality, and then it's like whether you agree with one philosophy versus the other.
Well, but that's the problem. They're just coming up with strategies that will give them more votes. So when it comes to them defending the Supreme Court, they're only going to act insofar as those actions allow them to defend their base and defend their voters or people that vote for them. So, for example, if the Supreme Court is trying to roll back more voting laws across the states, then that's going to be of interest to the Democrats, not because they care about the people losing their right to vote, but because they vote Democrat. The same way as they would care about just getting more voters, even if it means that they're getting more Trump voters by doing political strategies that just bring more voters in. For example, they would probably rather focus on superficial problems that don't really change people's lives much, but as it gets in the vote, as opposed to a different strategy could have been, let's actually offer people something that may actually help them in life. And then that way we'll actually get people from across the political spectrum. We'll get liberals, we'll get conservatives, we'll get Trump voters, if you actually offer them something that makes a meaningful difference in their lives. But they don't offer that. The strategy does not call for that.
But then you get part of the reason they don't offer is because then you get into socialism.
That's
and all
not
these things.
socialism. I mean,
Huh?
that's not socialism.
No, I mean it's not what it is, but you have to remember that that's still the big boogeyman for a lot of conservatives. Like we don't want to get to a place where it could be a resemblance of socialism, and it isn't socialism. It's just how socialism has been defined politically, has been defined by this campaign. Imagine that there's people out there who think that the opposite of what you think, that Biden is actually a socialist and is gonna bring about all these crazy things, or they're demonizing him as a socialist. And yeah, it's kind of messed up that people get demonized by being a socialist and having some of the ideas that you talk about, but that's the reality. Unfortunately, the people are afraid of that. And then there's a lot of Latinos who come from Venezuela, who come from Cuba, who come from other areas that unfortunately they're believing that stuff too. And I know there's a lot of controversy in Miami right now with a lot of messages on Facebook, on WhatsApp, calls that people are getting with these blatant lies about what America would do and how it would be if Biden were to win the White House.
Well, look, two things to that. One is that's just a problem with the strategy that you adopt for how you convey your message. So if the Republicans are going for scare tactics, then the Democrats have to counter that by trying to make it pretty obvious that guaranteeing healthcare coverage for everyone is not moving us towards socialism. It's just a basic need that is common sense to offer to people. And the second thing is, the Republicans are gonna use fear tactics regardless of whether or not of what the Democrats choose to do. So even if the Democrats don't want to present policies because they're afraid they're going to be labeled socialist, the Republicans are still going to use that strategy. The Democrats, what I'm trying to explain is that the Democrats don't want to present Medicare for all, a single payer system, because their corporate donors don't want that. Because those that the ruling elite don't actually want to give that to the people, and that's why the Democrats don't put it forward, because they don't want that. It's not because they're afraid of being labeled socialist. It's just that they don't care about giving that to the people.
No, that's a fair point, and I think they're trying to do it in a way that makes sense, and in a way that doesn't put their spouses out of work, or doesn't like create all this chaos and instability in the market. So I think that there's something to be said. Okay, there's going to be change. How can we do it gradually, and how can we do it? And to your point, and maybe instead of trying to have that balanced approach, what you need is just go in there and have the government take over. Yes, that happens, but then what happens with all those people who were impacted? Then those people are probably going to, you know what, the Democrats messed me up on this. I lost my job. And maybe if the program is successful, maybe they'll be able to say, you know what, I lost my job, or I had to do something else. My business went away, but I have coverage, so I don't have to worry about that. And I'm now working in another field, in another company, or maybe in the same field, just under the government, and everything's great. But like, that's not how that's going to happen, because you're talking about changing a whole healthcare ecosystem that has been around for decades. Yes, it's a hard change, and yes, you could probably do it like that, but I mean, it took a depression, the Great Depression, in a world war for FDR to do a lot of things that needed to be done.
Yeah, look, there's ways that you can transition,
and LBJ too, I guess,
right? But you can maybe, I don't know how effective a transitioning strategy would be, but you could at least try to do that to mitigate the effects of it. But look, again, what's the alternative? It's if the Republicans get to full control of the Supreme Court, they're going to roll back like all of whatever's left remaining of Obamacare. So you're still going to have millions of people losing their coverage. Insurance companies discriminating against people with pre-existing conditions. So one way or another, you're going to inconvenience people. You're either right.
Yeah, this is going to benefit your side though, because now your argument. So now there's going to be more, at least 11 million people or more that are going to lose their insurance. And now you know what? This is bullshit. We need to get behind more progressive reforms. So probably if Biden loses, I think the next nominee would be a very progressive candidate because they'll be able to say, you see, we lost with, well, you can say it with Clinton. Obviously, you'll be able to say it again with Biden, and then it will be a matter of who's the candidate that represents that wing of the party.
We'll see. I mean, I tend to see both of these parties as just two sides to the same coin. So it's hard for me to see true significant change coming from either of these parties or coming specifically from the Democratic Party. I think you need, but again, the whole issue with the third party is a huge challenge anyway. So it's hard to see how you bring about this type of change. I was just more talking about the political calculations that the Democrats are doing right now. And again, though that calculation is, or those calculations are around how do they get in power, how do they stay in power versus how do we help people. We only
Well,
help
yeah,
people.
because you need one of the ways that you can help people is by getting to power, right?
Right, but that's
So that's
assuming
the
that, yeah, but I mean you're being very generous there with their goals because you're saying, yeah, their goal is to get into power, but once they're in power, then they're gonna help the people. And what I'm saying is like, no, their goal is to get into power, and once they're there, there's no how do we help the people now? That doesn't follow.
No, it is. I mean, it is. Maybe they're not as committed to it. You
the
know,
the only
and I
way
think
that
this is what happens in Latin America, right? That you see the politicians come in promising you X, Y, Z, and then after the election, you don't see them, and then you see them again
yeah
4 years later. So
what
yeah, so I mean, that would
what
be the type of.
that's the same thing here, and I was just gonna say that the reason why you don't see that type of change is because again the only way that politicians act is if the population is putting pressure on them. So once we vote these politicians into office, we need to continue that pressure. We need to let
That's
them
right.
know that if they don't do things to benefit people, that we're not going to support whoever it is that they're supporting, or we're not going to reelect them. Right? It's the people. Ultimately, it's always been the people that have the power. But again, it's so easy to distract people, and directly or indirectly distract them because they're either working 2 or 3 jobs and they don't have time to pay attention to politics, or distract them directly with programming and sensationalism and all these other things. But the result is the same. The people lose track of these politicians. The politicians go to Washington, and then 4 years come and go, and not much happens because the people didn't put pressure on them. So yeah, so it's I'm not blaming, and I'm not putting the full blame on the politicians. I'm just trying to explain how it is that they operate. But a big part of that is because the people let them get away with that.
Give them bread and give them circus.
Yeah.
Give them bread and give them circus.
I love the way that you phrased it in the intro, that we had an earthquake here in LA yesterday. It was a 4.8, but the political
Yeah, you felt it,
establishment,
right?
yeah, the political establishment just got a 7, 7.5, maybe an 8, because this is, and then the just to use the earthquake metaphor, the aftershocks are still being felt. So I don't know how, but these are going to be 3. How many more months do we have until we have 2 months until the election? So another 3.5 until a new president steps into office. So it's going to be really interesting. On
It
top of
is.
everything else that's already happening now,
Yeah, yeah. I think a lot of people were. There were so many funny memes about 2020, so many insults about 2020, and the reality is, it was going to happen at some point, right? And I think it, she did a fantastic job, and now it's about the next generation, right? And about what the political leaders are going to do to to leave to advance her legacy, to advance not only her work but John Lewis work. So I mean, it's tough that we lost two giants of political activism just when we need them the most, right? That's part of how it feels like, just when you have hopes and you have these sort of individuals who serve as these amazing role models and giants who inspire you, who know what to say, who know how to act, who know how to play the game, and then to lose them all in the same year is kind of tough. And in addition to everything that's going on with the pandemic, financially, the fires here in California. So it just feels like it's a lot of unrest in the world right now.
Yeah, so stay tuned to the Brown Cast so we can give you our take.
So you can stay positive.
Yeah, well, not with me, man. I feel like I'm such a cynic most of the time. I'll try to stay positive. It's what is the what is that expression? I'm a pessimist in theory, but an optimist in practice.
There you go.
Okay. Well, thanks everyone for joining. If again, follow us on YouTube. If you like what you're listening to, make sure to hit that subscribe button and also click the little bell so you get alerts when we put out new videos. And we also have a page on Twitter, Brown Perspective.
And we're like Daddy Yankee. Sígueme, te sigo.
That's
or
right.
particularly on the IG. Sígueme, te sigo.
Yeah, we have Instagram as well, the same Brown Perspective. The handle on Twitter and Instagram is at Brown Perspec TV for perspective, not for television, but just for perspective, because we couldn't either the number of characters was not long enough for us to put the name, or it was already taken, so we had to use this one. But it's cool. I like it though. It makes it unique.
Yeah, it kind of sucks that we have to justify this decision almost every episode though. Well, next time as you continue to listen to us, we'll get a marketing department to help us with all the right handles and get on top of everything.
I choose to think of it more that it's so unique that it warrants
That's right.
a few seconds of discussion every time.
That's right.
Bueno, nos vemos.
Ciao.